There are moments when your body knows something before your mind is ready to admit it. Maybe you've walked into a room and known within seconds that you didn't belong there anymore. Nothing had happened, no one had said a word, but every part of you just knew. Or maybe you've sat down to write with the words already there and the ideas very clear, and you still stared at the screen. It wasn't because you'd run out of ideas, but because something inside of you had quietly pulled the emergency brake. Or maybe the signal showed up differently. You got tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. You stopped returning calls, disappeared from social media, and canceled plans you'd normally keep. You told yourself you just needed a little space. It wasn't that you'd stopped caring. It was that your body was asking for something your mind hadn't caught up to yet. Welcome back to Your Passion, Purpose, and Personal Brand. I'm Lisa McGuire, Strategic Identity Advisor, and over the last several months, we've been walking through one of the most meaningful journeys I've shared on this show. We've been working through identity, worthiness, belonging, visibility, and the patterns that quietly shape our lives. Over the last 2 episodes, I've had the privilege of sitting down again with my friend and collaborator, Dr. Don Barden, to explore what he calls the new human economy. It's a future where leadership becomes more relational, more human, more rooted in trust than in transaction. Those conversations left me with something to sit with. But before we can begin to bring humanity back to business, to the marketplace, or to leadership, we first have to bring it back to ourselves. We're not machines or productivity systems or optimization projects. We're human beings who think and feel and protect ourselves. We adapt, we carry memories and stories, and whether we realize it or not, our bodies carry them too. Today's episode is sponsored by Architect Her. If you caught the last 2 episodes, you've already heard Dr. Don Barden and me talk about the vision behind this experience. Architect Her is a private leadership architecture experience for high-capacity women preparing to lead what comes next. Grounded in Don's doctoral research on the new human economy, it brings together accomplished women from around the world who aren't simply looking to achieve more. They're preparing to architect the future. If you're ready to move from achievement to authorship, from leading inside today's economy to helping shape tomorrow's, you'll find a link in today's show notes. The next era of leadership isn't waiting. It's already here. Now, before we go any further, I want to be clear about something. I'm not a physician or a therapist, and I'm not here to diagnose or treat medical conditions. Everything I'm sharing today comes from years of working with leaders navigating identity evolution, combined with my own lived experience. If you're struggling with your physical or mental health, please talk with a qualified healthcare professional who can help you make the right decisions for your situation. My hope today isn't to hand you medical advice. It's to give you language because sometimes words are what changes everything. One of the things I've noticed over the years, especially as I've kept learning about identity, is that many of us have spent our lives believing change happens primarily in the mind. If I could just think differently, I'll become different. If I read another book or listen to another podcast, maybe sit through another workshop, I'll finally become the person I know I'm capable of being. But what if that's only part of the story? Identity doesn't only live in your thoughts, it lives in your body. And your body has been practicing your old identity every single day for years, sometimes even decades. It knows what stress feels like, what people-pleasing feels like, what proving and overfunctioning and hyper-independence feels like. It even knows what hiding feels like. Those aren't just ideas. They're experiences your body has rehearsed thousands of times, which means when you begin becoming someone new, your body has to learn a new definition of safety. I think that's part of why change feels so exhausting. You're not simply just changing your mind, you're teaching your body that it no longer has to live inside yesterday's survival strategies. I've shared before that when my nervous system gets overloaded, I tend to disappear. Maybe you've noticed. Sometimes I'll step away from LinkedIn for a few days, occasionally longer, and people assume I'm taking a break from work or that I don't have anything to say. Well, neither of those are true. What's actually happening is much quieter than that. I've learned enough about myself to know that when I'm overloaded, I instinctively move towards quiet and simplicity. I search out places where I can hear myself think again. And I have a friend who understands this about me, and over the years, we've developed a kind of shorthand. If I text her, "I'm in the mountains," she knows exactly what I mean. It doesn't necessarily mean I've packed my bag and driven to North Carolina. It means I'm regulating. I'm getting quiet and coming back to myself. A few years later, I found out there was actually language for this. If I look in my human design, the type of space I best work in is called caves. Now, it doesn't mean I have to go find a cave, but my natural design craves a place of simplicity and protection and quiet, where my nervous system settles before I re-engage with the world. I don't share that because you need to know human design. I share it because understanding myself gave me permission to stop fighting myself. For years, I thought something was wrong with me. Why couldn't I just keep pushing? In any other situation, what would have been normal felt like too much frenzy. I'd feel like I need to disappear. I'd find myself craving silence. And today I understand something I didn't know then. My nervous system wasn't betraying me. It was informing me. It was telling me I drifted away too far from myself. And I wonder how many of us have spent years judging ourselves for signals that were actually invitations to rest, to slow down, and perhaps even grieve. What if we all needed was just to reconnect, to stop performing and come home to ourselves? Because here's what I believe. A regulated nervous system isn't just about feeling calmer. It's about becoming available to be who you really are. When we're dysregulated, we spend an enormous amount of energy fighting our own wiring, our own rhythms, and the wisdom our body has been trying to communicate all along. The question isn't, how do I become someone different? Instead, it's what would become possible if I finally stop fighting the person I already am. I think one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is learning to recognize the signals before they become symptoms. Your nervous system has been talking to you for a very long time. It's time to consider whether you've been listening or whether you've been explaining away everything it's been trying to tell you. Sometimes the signals are obvious. You wake up exhausted even after a full night's sleep. You can't concentrate. Everything feels louder than it used to, and small conveniences start to feel enormous. Maybe you snap at people you love. Your curiosity and creativity quietly disappear, and the work that once energized you starts to feel heavy. You stop reaching out to people, stop posting, stop dreaming and imagining what's next. That's not laziness. It's your nervous system quietly shifting from creating to surviving. Sometimes the signs are more subtle. You can't make simple decisions, so you keep changing your mind. You reread the email 5 times, overthink the text message, procrastinate on the opportunity you've been waiting months to arrive. And you get unusually busy doing everything except the one thing that matters the most. You keep telling yourself you'll feel better once you get caught up. But what I know so well is that somehow your to-do list never gets done, and the idea of caught up never seems to arrive. Have you noticed that when your nervous system is dysregulated, you become a different version of yourself? Maybe you get more reactive or fearful or defensive. Maybe you withdraw or get more controlling or more anxious. Maybe you go the other way and just get more agreeable with everything. Dysregulation doesn't look the same for everyone. Some people fight and some people flee. Other people freeze or become incredibly productive because productivity feels safer than presence. And here's the danger. When we're unaware that our nervous system is running the show, we start making decisions from survival instead of alignment. We say yes because we're afraid. We might stay because leaving feels uncertain. And there are times when we hide because visibility feels dangerous, and overwork because slowing down feels irresponsible. Without quite realizing it, we become someone we don't recognize, while telling ourselves we're simply doing what needs to be done. I've learned that some of the most important decisions in my life should never be made from a dysregulated nervous system. That includes major business calls, not the relationship calls, not the decisions about who I am. When I'm dysregulated, everything looks more threatening than it really is. Everything feels more urgent than it actually is. And everything seems to demand an immediate answer. Wisdom rarely speaks in urgency. It has a different rhythm. It waits, and it listens, and it breathes. Wisdom helps you to begin to trust again. That's one of the reasons I know when it's time for me to head for the metaphorical mountains inside of me. It's the mountains inside of me where the noise settles and my breathing changes. It's where my thoughts stop racing and my body can remember it's safe. You probably have your own version of the mountains. Maybe it's coffee on the back porch before anyone else is awake. Maybe it's a walk in the woods or gardening or music. You may take time to meditate or to pray. You may find escape in working with your hands or even taking a long bath. It might look like watching the sunrise or reading a book with your phone in the other room. Or perhaps maybe it's simply sitting in silence long enough to hear yourself again. We don't all regulate the same way, and that's fine. The goal isn't to copy someone else's practice. It's to discover what actually brings you back to yourself. I'm curious, what is that for you? And I want to encourage you to ask a different question. It's not what's wrong with me, but what is my body asking me for right now? Maybe it's rest or nourishment. It could be movement or stillness. Maybe it's laughter or tears or connection or solitude. Maybe the courage to say no or the permission to stop proving. This is why I believe nervous system regulation is an act of self-leadership, not self-care. Leadership begins with awareness, and awareness asks, what's true right now? It's not what you wish were true and not what you think should be true, just what's actually true. Maybe what's true is that you've been running on adrenaline for years. Maybe it's that your body has been carrying grief your calendar never made room for. Or maybe your nervous system has been simply trying to tell you that this identity no longer fits. Throughout this series, we've been talking about your category of only, your clear, ownable difference, the contribution only you can make. And today I want to add something I haven't said before. You cannot fully express your category of only through a chronically dysregulated nervous system. It's not because you aren't capable, but because survival consumes the very energy that creativity, connection, wisdom, discernment, and leadership all require. When your body believes it's in danger, it isn't thinking about your legacy. It's just trying to get through the day. That's why this work matters. Identity isn't only cognitive, it's embodied. And being in alignment isn't simply agreeing with yourself intellectually. It's when your thoughts, your body, your voice, your decisions, and your life all start telling the same story. And when that happens, something remarkable shifts. You stop forcing, stop performing, and stop constantly fighting yourself. Not because life gets easy, but because energy is no longer split in two. It's no longer spent half on becoming someone and half on protecting yourself. I want to leave you with one thought. Peace isn't the absence of stress. Peace is the return to yourself again and again and again. Not because you'll stop becoming dysregulated. No, as long as you are breathing in this human body, that is going to happen. All of us become dysregulated. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is remembering the way back home to yourself. And next week, we're going to talk about what happens after that. Because something interesting occurs once you begin regulating your nervous system and living more fully in alignment. A new fear shows up. Not the fear of failure. Most of you have already moved past that. It's the fear of expansion. The fear of actually becoming the person you've worked so hard to become. Every expansion asks something of us. It asks us to leave behind a familiar identity. Let go of relationships that no longer fit and release the stories that once protected us. And also trust that who we're becoming can hold more than who we are right now believes possible. That's where we're headed next. So until then, listen to your body, honor its wisdom, and thank it for everything it's carried. And remember, before we can bring humanity back to business, to leadership, or the marketplace, we have to bring it back home to ourselves first. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you here next time.